Hey everyone, this is Robert Pascuzzi. I'm here with Jewel B on So Booking Cool, and you can follow The Ravine, the movie and the book. And The Ravine is available on Amazon, and you can also find out more information about the upcoming movie on the Instagram account at The Ravine Movie, or you can check us out on our website for the movie with all the details about the actors and all the info you're going to want to know about the upcoming movie at theravine.info. That's theravine.info. So, Jules, I really appreciate being on with you today.
Welcome to So Booking Cool. It's Jewel B. Today's guest is an entrepreneur and author of multiple books, including the critically acclaimed and popular The Ravine, a story that teaches lessons about hope and forgiveness. The novel is currently being adapted for the screens and will release early next year. He is Robert Pascuzzi. Hello, Robert.
Hello. Great to be on with you, sweetheart.
Thank you. Likewise. How's everything going? How has the new year been so far, would you say?
Well, it's been great. I mean, obviously everybody's dealing with the virus right now, so it is what it is. But we're going to get through it. I feel like we're on the downward swing here, hopefully. But I've been extremely busy with we're in post-production for the film. So it's been extremely busy, and I've got some other projects going, but yeah, I'm not feeling any downtime in that regards. So it's been good.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And staying busy. So in addition to like staying busy, what keeps you motivated to stay busy, would you say?
What keeps me motivated is just chasing I like to set audacious goals for myself. And I get up every day, know what I'm moving towards. So I would say just being clear about what you're going after. And I think if you're clear about where you're going, then each day you have a reason to get up and, have all the burners clicking and move into action. So I've always been a big believer in setting goals, and I'm not talking about things that I think I can do. These are things that I want, but a lot of times I don't know how they're going to happen. So I've learned that, especially doing things like a movie, and when most people said that wasn't possible, and then seeing it actually come together, it inspires you to keep going forward and even setting bigger goals. So that's how I would answer that question. I'm just very clear about where I'm going in the future.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay. There's a lot of like really interesting stuff I can pull from what you just said. So do you believe in speaking things into existence?
Oh, totally. Yeah, absolutely. Words are things. And so when the Bible says when you speak words, they fall to the ground and they harden into form. So we have to be very careful about what we say. And there's the whole mind-body connection, and so I definitely believe in only verbalizing. It all starts with your thoughts, though, and where thoughts are just an expression of what we say verbally. So yes, totally.
Mm-hmm. And then with you mentioning that there have been naysayers about the movie, about The Ravine becoming a film, and I want to know, how do you stay firm to the goals that you have for yourself, and how would you advise others to do that when there might be naysayers?
Well, I mean, I think there's always going to be naysayers. There's going to be people that don't understand how what maybe some would say are miracles or things that are almost impossible, how those things move into form. But when you understand the laws and everything works in harmony with the laws, then you become, in a sense, a co-creator. And I've studied under, my wife and I have studied under people like Tony Robbins, Bob Proctor, and I'm talking about personally studied with them. So we've put a lot of time into understanding, for example, the law of attraction, which is real. Once you understand how these things work, then you work in harmony with them. And when I was younger, now looking back, I realized I was actually working against those laws because I didn't understand a lot of the principles that govern these things. But once you begin to understand those things and you start to work in harmony with them, that's where I think the so-called miracles occur. It's the progression of moving, your thoughts in the right direction, and thoughts move into form. And so, I mean, we could talk about this all day long, but I think it is something that, I've been a lifelong student of personal development. And through it, I've just really come to believe that anything is possible. I mean, we're God's highest form of creation. Anything is possible, but what we're willing to do is much different as human beings. And it's typically driven out of negative habit patterns in terms of thoughts, fear, worry, doubt, indecision. And these things are all paradigms that are conditioned into us from a very early age. And without becoming aware of these things and taking control, then we're almost a victim of circumstance. And so it's so imperative that if you really want to move ahead in your life and really, I think we're all here for a reason. And if you want to start moving into the understanding of what you could truly accomplish and contribute as a human being, it's really cool. I mean, I look at this movie and I'm so excited and proud of what we've created. We're in the last phase of the movie now. We just signed Ramin Djawadi to do the score, which a lot of people will recognize him from Game of Thrones and some other big movies. And, we had even people on our own team tell us that isn't going to be possible. He won't work on a small budget film. Well, here we are. He's a part of the film. So it's the ability to hold on the screen of your mind what you really want to see happen. And if you do that and you move into action, it's amazing what you can do. And I mean, we've seen it with the Ravine. So I'm just excited to see now the movie, where it's going to be going from here. We're close to completion of the film in another month, and then we'll be looking for someone, a studio or a Netflix or somebody who are going to partner with from there to distribute the movie.
That is very exciting. And first of all, just congratulations on the movie and everything. And I'm so glad that it's been, working out so well. That is
thanks.
awesome.
I appreciate it. Yes.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, how would you describe your journey to writing The Ravine? Like, how did you get the idea, and what is the heart and soul of this story? And why do you think it resonates so much?
Well, okay, I'll answer the first part. So I had an inspiration. I would call it a calling. And now looking back, I understand the difference between a calling and maybe being inspired. A calling to me is just something that you can't turn away from. And that's what happened. I was on a plane and I read a prayer that I heard on Oprah. When her final show, she had that hour-long special and she was telling about her whole life. And I was watching and I was taking notes. And she said, whenever I ran into crossroads in my life and I didn't know, I was at a fork in the road, I didn't know which way to go, I would stop and say this prayer. And I wrote it down in my journal. And I always knew I had a book in me. I just never knew what it was going to be. And this went on for many, many years. And so I was on the plane with my wife, Kelly, and I pulled this journal out and I read this prayer and I closed my eyes and boom, it just shot through me like a lightning bolt. And I just knew at that point. And, it's one of those things when you know that that's when you really know, when you know that you know. And that was the inspiration to begin the project. And it was also the inspiration and the motivation to continue it, to see it through. It was, almost a 3-year project to get the book done. And I just would never quit on it because I knew it was something that we were called to do. And we had to see it through. And we took that same approach into, the movie and getting the movie done. And so, that was the inspiration for it, just because we knew there was a message that was coming to and through us. It's not really about us. I mean, we were the conduits to get the story out, but there's a big, broad message in the story. And I know it's going to impact many, many people. And, that's why Ravine, when he saw the movie, he just said he was so inspired by the message and he wanted to be a part of it. And that's how actors, everybody that has come to this movie, they've all kind of had the same theme, in that they just felt that they needed to be a part of this movie because they wanted to be a part of this global message of hope, forgiveness, non-judgment. And there's so many things that I think are going to be impactful for the viewers and the readers, of course, of the book. But that was the inspiration, and that's what kept us going, is just I think it's just the understanding that we were supposed to do this, and there wasn't any backing out, and here we are today. So I know it was the right thing.
So with you being the creator of this story that has been made into a movie, what has been your role, on a part of the film adaptation?
What was our role in the movie? The production of the movie?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we are the producers. Kelly and I financed 100% of the movie, so we went all in to get this done. We worked with Keone Waxman, who's our director, and he worked with us to adapt the book into a screenplay. And so we've been, involved day in and day out, soup to nuts. I've already spent about an hour or two on it today. There's so many things that have to be done to get a movie done, but we were on set every day down in New Orleans for, 40 some days while the movie was being shot. We've been involved all the way 100% because we had to be, because Kelly and I, we had to know that the integrity of this message was so important to us. We wanted to make sure it was what we wanted. And we, it's all worked out fantastically, but I do have a new appreciation. I think now when I watch a movie, what goes into making a movie, it's far more than most people would think, because they don't have an awareness when you go in and watch a movie for 2 hours, walk out. But being involved in a movie now, I see all the hard work that has to go into getting it done.
Wow, you guys are a dream team, would you say? You and Kelly? That's
I don't know. I mean, yeah, I think we are, but I appreciate that. You have to ask her sometimes with this quarantine, there's days where I think people aren't used to being in the same room together for so long. But no, it's been great. Kelly's is my rock, and I think she would say the same thing about me. And it's been fun doing this together. It's really a dream come true for both of us.
What were there any films that touched you, and were those films at all about personal development, and books as well?
Oh, geez. Well, the only film I can think of that had a personal development theme was the movie The Secret. That I don't know if you saw The Secret. About 500 million people have seen it.
I know the book. There's a book version of it, right? Manifestation?
Yes. Yeah, there was a movie that came out about 10 years ago called The Secret, and it had, Bob Proctor was in it, but it talked about the law of attraction, the manifestation. But I'm not too sure if there's any other movies that would have that theme. But I mean, books. I mean, I've got a big library at home, and I've always been I've always been a student of personal development. And some of my greatest mentors are people I've met in books, but I've never met in person. But yeah, I mean, I read and study at least an hour every day. At least that's what but the intention is stay in the material and keep growing.
Hmm.
Mhm.
What was your approach to writing The Ravine? Did you have like a one set routine for those 3 years that it took to get it published, and any memorable moments from writing the book?
Well, we didn't really have, at the time I was running a business full time, and our kids were younger. We have three boys. So I didn't have a lot of time during the day with all the commitments that I had. So a lot of it was done at night, after 9 o'clock in the evening when the kids went to bed. And we worked with a ghostwriter that on some of the books. So a lot of the collaboration that went on, and just working through things occurred, between 9 and 1 in the morning. It was a lot of work.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a lot of work, but so it was just whenever we could get it, it fit in the time, and between everything else that was going on at that period of our lives. But you know how it is. I mean, if you want to do something bad enough, you always find a way.
Yeah.
That's what I've come to believe, because we all have all the time there is. It's just, how are we going to use it? And we can get much more done if we're focused and we have a goal. And that's why I think, having goals are so important, because the goal will pull you through during the tough times. If you're setting the right types of goals, you'll find that it's like a magnet. It will continue to pull you through, because you're going to have, if it's a big goal, something that's going to stretch you, there's going to be moments where you're going to want to give up, because it's not easy going after something really big, right? And these are things that are causing us to move out of our comfort zones. And so there's going to be those periods. We got to have something that's really, really big and inspiring. Otherwise, we'll drop off. And I think that's what happens to a lot of people, is they drop off because it's just not inspiring enough, and it doesn't keep them pushing through the tough times. But that's what kept us going on the writing, and just there were a lot of bumps. There was a point after about 2 years that we had a chance to submit we submitted the book to a well-known publicist on the East Coast that worked with a lot of well-known authors, and we didn't even get a call back. So it was a big deflator. How we were all pumped up. Oh, this person's gonna. She's agreed to look at the book, and she was talking to us for a couple months beforehand. Can't wait to get the manuscript. Send the manuscript, and it was crickets. And that's a huge, wet slap in the face. It's like, okay, well, man, this must really be bad. She won't even return a phone call. And so we were at a crossroads there, and there was a period of, I think, if I remember right, it was about 6 or 7 weeks where nothing happened on the book. I kind of just almost felt like I was going to give up on it. I didn't know where to go, which way to go. And then something happened, and, I won't go into all the details, but it was almost, again, that's how this whole thing has gone for us. Right when every time we were at a roadblock, or it looked like something that might prohibit us from going forward, it always showed up. And that's what happened here. And then we were able, in the next 6 months or so, to get the book completed in the form it's in now. So, I just, the listeners, I would just say, if you really believe in something, and that you're supposed to do this, whether it's a book or whatever it is in your life, don't give up on it. Because I know that anything is possible if we believe in it enough to see it through. And that's the thing, on these big goals and things you're chasing, there's no timeline, and I think I had a timeline in my mind, and it got blown up several times. And what I came to learn is, you don't change the goal, you just change the date. It doesn't mean it's not going to happen. God's delays are not God's denials. That's who I, whatever your source or whoever it is for you, but I call it God. And I know that, he's not denying anything. He's just saying maybe the timing's not right, or you need to do this or that, or you're not ready. And looking back, I don't think we were ready for this. We wouldn't have been ready for this movie and everything that's coming, maybe even a couple years ago. And I think it's just a timing thing. And with success, I think hopefully maybe some wisdom too, to be able to look back. It's like that old Steve Jobs quote. He said, "You cannot connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. You just have to trust that the dots will connect moving forward." And that's what it is.
That's very true. And I love that quote. Well, that's a great Steve Jobs quote, of course. And then what you said, God's delays are not God's denials. That is deep. That's really deep. But yeah, the persistence, the perseverance has paid off. I mean, you know, the novel is starring the likes of Terry Polo, Eric Dane, and Peter. Is it Facinelli? Did I say that right?
That's right. Facinelli, Leslie Uggams plays a big role of Joanna.
Leslie Uggams? Wow. Like,
yeah,
look at this cast. Yeah. So what can you tell us about the casting and how that has come together and what it's been like to witness and, you know?
Well, I can tell you that I really feel every actor, as I mentioned earlier, they all had the same, when we met them, they all kind of had the same message to Kelly and I. Was, you know, they just felt moved by the manuscript and they felt a calling, or, you know, they just resonated with it and they wanted to be a part of the movie. So that was, I know that the all the way down the line, we just felt like every person that came to the movie just did an amazing job. Eric, Terry, Peter, they all just, each of their roles, they really embodied the role. And really, I felt so blessed because, you know, this is a very personal story to Kelly and I, and to see what they brought to the table. I know it wasn't about money. I really believe that every actor that came on board on this project, they weren't there because of the money. They were there because they wanted to be a part of this, and they saw the vision for it. So that was very gratifying, and they were great to work with, and very collaborative. Just, you know, it was a real joy. I mean, it's you know, you hear a lot of things about trying to make a movie your first go around. We hear a lot of, you know, oh, it could be, you know, not a very good experience. Be ready for this, or, you know, you won't be happy with that. But all in all, Kelly and I were extremely happy with the whole process, and a lot of it went to the actors. Just amazing.
And how much of the movie is like the book?
You know, we stuck pretty as close as we could. The adaptation from the movie is very, very close. You know, we had to change a few things around, but it just wouldn't fit in the movie in terms of a screenplay. But the overall message and everything is, you know, was not, obviously it's intact. So I would say the majority of the film is very identical to the novel.
And do you think that should be the case, like in general, when a book is going to be adapted into a film or a show?
Well, I mean, I don't know if I can speak for everybody, but for Kelly and I, you know, the underlining message of this story is the main reason we did it. And so the integrity of that message had to come through, right? And it definitely did. You know, like I'll give you an example. In the novel, the book ends at a church, and that wouldn't work in terms of the movie. So we ended it at the Ravine, where Danny, the main character, where he took his life. And so the main characters, Terry and Eric Dane, go back to the Ravine. So that's just an example of, you know, but it's basically they're, you know, it's the same scene in terms of the dialogue and everything, but it's just, we're not, instead of the church, we're back at the Ravine. So that type of thing.
Is this the kind of movie that you would have liked to have watched when you were younger, let's say?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I think this movie has a message for and we did it in a way, we didn't want the movie to be R-rated, so because we wanted to be very inclusive. We wanted the message to be inclusive. We want the audience to feel like it was a movie that you could take your teenager to, and I think we did that. I think that's what we have here, and I think I definitely think it's something I would have enjoyed seeing when I was much, maybe even a teenager. And we have three kids, three boys that are 21, 19, and 17. They've all seen the movie, of course, and they loved it. I think it's going to be a movie that is going to touch a wide range in terms of the audience, and that was our hope. I really think it's just an all-encompassing message, and that's what I'm happy about, is that I don't think we didn't do it for it's only for this age group or whatever. There's a big wide message in the movie, and it's done in a way that I think anybody can feel comfortable about taking their younger kids to the movie.
Wow, that is wonderful. That is wonderful. It's something like for everyone. And it sounds like it has such a big human interest component to it.
Yeah, I think the themes that will come out are the obvious ones are hope, forgiveness, non-judgment, and all these things. But I think what's really going to be interesting for the audience is that one person could come out of the theater and say, well, this is what my takeaway was from the movie, or this is what I thought it was about, or and then the next person is going to have a completely different viewpoint, because we've done it in a way that it's really, we're not telling them what to think. We're not leading them down a path saying, okay, yeah, this is what we want you to think the movie's about. We've done it in a way that it's going to cause people to think. And if you look at it on Amazon, for example, with the book, it's either people are giving it a 5-star or they give it like a 1-star, because there's some challenging things in this movie. I mean, we're asking people to really wrestle with their beliefs, what they believe on hope and forgiveness. And could somebody that killed themselves and their family, could they end up in a better place? So there's a lot of deep questions in this movie that we're not, we did it in a way that we're not telling them how they should think or feel, but we're asking them to question it. And because that's what happened to Kelly and I, we had to question our own beliefs. And that was the journey we went on in writing this book. And what came out of this was, this whole story. And that's why I think it's going to be really interesting to see people react to it. Because it's not black or white. None of these questions that are the underlying themes in this book and movie are black and white. They're anything from that. So it's really more of a question of how do you view things, and it's all about perception. I mean, it's the old Wayne Dyer quote: when you change the way that you look at something, what you look at changes. It's perception.
Yes.
And I think that's the challenge. That's going to be one of the things that I think people will walk out of the movie, maybe, and that's our hope, is maybe you will start to question some of the things, that you view, how you view things. Because I know we definitely did in the 2-3 years that we went on this journey to get this written. It really changed some of our beliefs, and we just wanted to share it.
What would you apply to another movie? Would you do another film adaptation? And what lessons from this experience would you apply to your next movie? And you would do a sequel to The Ravine.
I don't anticipate that we're going to do a sequel to this movie, because I just don't feel like it fits. So probably not. Now, I mean, I've already got an idea that we already have been working on a screenplay for a new movie, but it has nothing to do with, it's a World War II movie. So it's just something else that I was inspired to do. But I think this is a very specific story and a message that I don't see the story going on, because then we'd have to come up with things that I don't see how we would do that. So I would say there will not be a sequel.
Okay. Yeah. And it's important to know that, like, as a storyteller, to know when a story, it should be continued or it's done being told, it's served its purpose. And you're saying the Ravine serves its purpose to all who are going to read it and watch it.
I think it does. I think it ends here, and it's, my intuition and Kelly, we just feel our intuition says it's going to end here because we've already been asked if we wanted to pursue it, and I think it's no. It's kind of like, if you ask me what movie in recent times what genre would we fall in, I would say it would be The Shack. I don't know if you ever read the book or saw the movie. But I think there's going to be a lot of comparisons to that. And The Shack didn't have a sequel either, so probably won't be with the Ravine.
So was this book, is it strictly taken from the manuscript, or you also did a screenplay? Well,
so the screenplay for the movie was an adaptation of the book. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. So for all the authors out there who would want to adapt their book into a movie or a show, what's some advice that you would have? What's some insight that you can give?
Boy, I don't know. Pray.
Right.
I think some books adapt well. When we first met Keone Waxman, who again directed the movie and helped us convert the book into the screenplay, and he was awesome to work with. He, when he read the book, he said, "I feel like this is going to work well. We have something here." And my understanding from him was there's just some stories that don't convert well into a movie or a screenplay. But so I'm not an expert on that, but I think it's working with the right people is a big part of anything that you do. We were approached by another group a few years back about having a movie done and after we met them, we just felt like it wasn't a good fit. And so we didn't go forward, and I'm so glad that we didn't. Because after meeting the team we just worked on with and everything, we felt certain that there was a reason why we didn't go forward with that previous offer. So I think I think it all goes back to, if you believe something can happen, it starts in the mind first. I think everything, at least in my life, that has happened it always originates in our thoughts, in our mind. We get an idea, we get a picture in our mind, we see something, but we have to hold that image, we have to hold that thought in our conscious mind. And again, now we go into, and I don't want to get too deep here for the listeners, but I'm very in tune with how to take thoughts from the conscious mind and suppress those into the subconscious, because everything's controlled in our subconscious mind.
Yes.
And what most people do is they just get a thought or an idea and they discount it, or they just disregard it because they don't know how it's going to happen. And what I want to tell the listeners is that you don't have to know how it's going to happen. You just have to know that it is going to happen. That's all you have to know. But again, when people are looking at the big star up there, and that's the goal, and they look up there and they say, well, that's where I want to go, but I don't know how it's going to happen, right? I don't have the money. I mean, Kelly and I live in Kansas City. We didn't know anybody in Hollywood. But again, when you have a bit, things, the universe will conspire, and the people, the processes, the conditions, whatever you need will show up. Does it always show up on our timeline? No. My experience says it doesn't. It never does. But it shows up when it's supposed to show up, and it shows up right at the right time. Our job is to hold the vision of what we want and not waver. And again, it's so easy to drop off, but that is the key to everything. In my personal experience, is having the will, and the will allows us to hold one image on the screen of our mind to the exclusion of everything else. So all this stuff that you asked about earlier, coming in, why it can't happen, you've got to be able to use your will to see it through. And if you look at any great endeavor in mankind, they, whether they knew they were doing this or not, Bob Proctor talks about unconscious competence. These are people that are doing what I'm describing, but they don't know they're doing it. They're just doing it automatically. And that's how it happens. When John F. Kennedy asked Warren von Braun, who's considered the father of the space program and the architect behind the Saturn V rocket that took us to the moon, when he asked him what would it take to put a man on the moon and bring him back safely, he said it in 5 words: the will to do it. That's all. That was his answer. It wasn't, we've got to assemble the greatest minds and the engineers, and we've got to do all these plans. The will to do it. And so that's how they got there 9 years later, is they held that image that they were going to go to the moon. They didn't know how to get to the moon. They didn't know how to get to the moon until they landed, right? Mm-hmm. So that's the whole point of going after something that you don't know how to do. But that's where you should be going. I think so many of us tiptoe safely through life to death. That's no way to live. In my mind, life should be an adventure, a journey. You should be out on the edge. If you're out on the edge and you feel uncertain and you don't know what's going to happen day in, that's a good place. That means you're going after something that's pretty cool, probably. Mm-hmm. So that's my message to the listeners: is figure out something that, and everybody has these thoughts. Everybody has these inspirations. It's just that we discard them, I think. And I used to do it too. But, the more that I got into this stuff, the more I study, and the more I let some of these, I guess, these inspirations that I have, the more that you let them come to the surface, you'll start to see how things will move into action for you. And people call them, coincidences, luck, this type of thing. You're just lucky. No, it's not luck. It's doing things in a certain way. So, my wife, Kelly, has a coaching program called Creative Living, where we teach people how to, go from where they're at to where they want to be. Mm. And we teach a lot of these manifestation principles and things that we've learned. So if anybody wants to inquire on, how we do that, they can follow her on Instagram, Kelly Pascuzzi, and we teach this stuff. So it's just we pass it on, and that's the thing. Like, helping people. That's what it's all about. Whether it's a message in a movie or teaching people how to go after their dreams, providing success tools. I think all the greats like helping other people, and I look to people like Tony Robbins and Wayne Dyer and Bob Proctor, and I've learned from them, and it's great to pass it on. It's gratifying to pass it on, and that's the theme of our business is to help inspire people to learn and grow.
Robert Pascuzzi, everyone. Robert, thank you so much for your time, and
I hope I didn't talk too much. If you put a quarter in me, I'm going to go on forever.
No, listen, I so enjoyed speaking with you. Like, thank you for taking the time, and especially now, like myself, and I know the listeners, so much of what you said is very inspiring, like especially like during these times. So thank you.
Well,
Yeah, go on. Hmm.
well, no, I appreciate you having me on, and yeah, I think I really think this is a time, and this isn't about the book or the movie or anything, but I think the way I look at this is no one's denying that this is real. This is real, and people are sick, and people have died, unfortunately. But the perception that we take away from it and the meaning is ours. So in any environment, even in something as horrible as we've been going through, um, the meaning is ours, and that's gonna control everything, because the meaning that we attach to any event is going to dictate how we feel about it, and therefore what we're willing to do or not do. And so even in the midst of a dark period like this, I would encourage everybody to find some type of positive meaning that they can take away from it. I can tell you just a simple one for us is we just spent 3 days at the lake with our boys that we probably never would have spent. And we were just talking about this morning, my wife and I, how we haven't had this kind of family time in a long time. They're away to college, and, they come home maybe here or there. You just don't, they're doing their own thing. And we've had some amazing family time over these last several weeks that we otherwise wouldn't have had. So there's always, there's always something in any situation. And what I've learned, especially with what we went through and the tragedy that we went through, is when something's really, really dark, when something's really bad, it's the law of polarity. That means there's something on the other side that is very, very good. Okay. But we have to look for it. We have to ask the right questions. And that's how that story, the Ravine, came about. How could we take something so dark, so tragic as what happened here, and turn it into something good? And that's the physical manifestation of that question. And that scenario in our lives was the book, and now the movie. So I know that as listeners, whatever you're dealing with right now in your own lives, I feel for everyone out there, and we're not denying the existence of this, but ask yourself the right questions every day. There's always something to be grateful for. Gratitude is a great way to start your day, because you can't be negative and feeling grateful at the same time. Our mind can't entertain two thoughts at the same time. So if we're asking the right questions, what can I be grateful for today? Just whatever who could I be grateful for today? And, list 10 things that you're grateful for. That's a great way to start every day. 10 things that you're grateful for. You're going to move your mind and your body in the right vibration, and you're going to get your day started out so much better. And that's what I'd ask everybody to do. Work together in this pandemic. I feel like we're on the other side now. We're coming down the other side, and we're going to move out of this. And the question is, what have you learned from this whole thing? And because hopefully this has been a time for everybody to do some introspection and really have time to look at themselves. I don't think we spend enough time looking at who is Robert Pascuzzi. Who am I? What do I really want? What do I believe? And where am I going? And I think this was a reset. For me, it was a reset time. Everything's being reset here. The game has changed. And, what do who are you going to be coming out of this time? And and if you look at it that way, I think it gets exciting in a way, really. So that's just one thought on this whole thing.
Do you think that it's possible for people to go back to bad habits, like once we do come out of this, or do you think that people really will emerge as a better version of themselves?
I think it's up to each individual. And that's a really great question. I think without the awareness of the habits, because a paradigm is a collection of habits that has almost exclusive control over our habitual behavior. And almost all behavior, if you think about it, is habitual. And if we don't stop and think about our habits, how we're programmed, then yes, it's just automatic. We're going to go right back. We're going to just move right back into the same habit patterns. It's the ability to stop. And this isn't easy stuff. This is stuff you have to study and get into and become aware of how paradigms work. But there's a great book by Bob Proctor that goes into all of this stuff, and it's called You Were Born Rich by Bob Proctor. You Were Born Rich. And it's a great book at helping you get to look at you. And so I hope the listeners took some time during this phase in our lives to really look at yourself a little bit and decide who you want to be coming out of this thing. Otherwise, we are programmed for sure. We're all programmed. I deal with paradigms. I deal with programming, and you have to stop and look at it almost as a spectator. Does that make sense? You kind of have to step outside and go, why am I doing what I'm doing? Why am I having these thoughts? Why do I think this way? Why do I react this way? And once you start to do that and ask the right questions, there's always an answer for every question. But as Tony Robbins always says, quality questions get quality answers. Crappy questions get crappy answers, right? And so we can get into a negative mindset and we start asking negative questions. We get corresponding answers, and that's a cycle. That's the road we don't want to go down. But you can change things like Tony Robbins says, and I believe how quickly can you change something? That quickly. Okay. But it starts with quality questions. Thinking is nothing but the process of asking and answering questions. That's really what thinking is in my mind. But we have to start asking the right questions. If we're in a victim mentality right now with the pandemic, we're not going to be focused and asking the right questions. Okay. And again, I'm not denying that this isn't real. It is real. Okay. And it is horrible. But at the same time, we control, and I'm going to say it again, we control the meaning for us. We control the meaning for us. Don't let CNN, some outside media source tell you what the meaning is for you. Okay, you decide the meaning in any situation. And when we came out of this horrible scenario where someone had killed himself and his family, we had to decide what the meaning was. No one else. And that's why the book and the movie was done, is because we went on a journey to discover what the meaning was for us. We could have easily accepted what everybody else accepted is just, it was horrible, it was evil, it was this, that, just sweep it under the rug and let's never talk about it again. Well, if we would have taken on that approach, none of this would have ever happened. So and I'm not saying, look what we did. It's just, I'm trying to use it as an example to your question, that there is something positive in everything that seems negative. And the more negative or the darker it is or the more tragic it is, that just means on the other side, there is something equal or greater value that's going to come out of it that is going to be inspiring, could be very positive, could be something equally just as beautiful as what happened on the other side. And I do believe that, and I do believe that's why this whole movie and book was done, was to show that message.
Again, Robert Pascuzzi. Again, wow.
I know you were trying to wrap me up a little bit.
No, that was great. Yeah. That needed to be heard. Like, seriously, yeah. It really did.
I think it's just, I'm so inspired because I think everybody's going to be, I think the world's going to be vastly different. It already is. And it's going to be really interesting to see what direction humanity moves in. And I know that the message in the Ravine, pick up a copy of the book, and the movie is coming, but I know the message in this story. I don't think it's coincidence that it's coming out when it is. I've had so many different people say that to us. Even Ravine, who's doing the score on the movie now, he started this week. I mean, he even said that to us. I don't think it's, he said, I don't think it's coincidence that this movie is coming out when it is. And so, anyway, it's going to be really fun, and I do appreciate the time. You know, to be on Booking Cool, and I appreciate you having me on. It was a lot of fun, Jewel.
Oh, of course, of course. And like you said about timing, you know, with the movie when it's coming out, you mentioned timing earlier. But yeah, it was such a pleasure. Would love to talk with you again and let everyone know how they can keep up with you and, you know, the book, of course. And I also like that you mentioned Creative Living by your
Creative
wife.
Living is my wife's company, and I help out in that company a little bit. That is her coaching company where she works with individuals and businesses, and her name's Kelly Pascuzzi. You can find her on Creative Living on Instagram, and you can find the Ravine information either on the website, which is theravine.info, or you can follow us on Instagram at the Ravine Movie. It's at the Ravine Movie. And then I've got a personal website, this robertpascuzzi.com. If you want more information on Robert and what I do, and it's all there.
It's all there. We'll definitely be checking it out and keeping a strong lookout for the movie. Excited about it.
Well, Julie, you're a pleasure. Thanks so much, darling, for having me on, and I hope that everybody has a fantastic day. And the sun's shining here where I'm at, so I hope it's shining in your neck of the woods.
Thank you. It is actually, and everybody else be safe out there. You and your family be safe, Robert. And thank you to all the listeners. Until next time, so booking cool.